My apologies. Who would like to make a comment? Nate?
Sure.
Please.
This is kind of the beginning of a great image or a great sight. Black and white tones would allow us to get more out of black and white tones would allow us to get more out of the lighting of it, and then we probably don't need all of that foreground and all of that sky. We can bring it in a little bit and actually get that light play on the only structure in the nature there. But I think it landed on the right score for this one.
Next image, please. Okay, this image scores 4.
Yeah, I think I scored it a 6 because I think like a bronze. I thought it was worthy of a bronze because first of all the depth of it's nice and sharp on the eyes, you know, as may or may not be a moving animal, but it's not just sharp on the eyes, but you know it extends to the nose, which is kind of quite tricky to get that, you know, you have stopped right. It's got a nice feel. It's yes, the legs are cropped off, but because of that, it's got a kind of an unusual crop. So it's a little bit, I thought a little bit, you know, I wasn't like going into silvers yet, but I thought, you know, it's close to silvers. Really nice ornate, sharp, nice tones.
Yeah, I was below you. I was on 3. I agree.
Is it on?
Well,
It doesn't seem to be on.
okay, so we'll have to talk louder for you, so we'll see how long that voice lasts for. I gave it a 3. I agree with you that it's sharp. So when I look at the scoring criteria, you know, it has got competency in that area for sure. But I thought the crop was kind of having a bet both ways. Show me either the whole animal or go in tighter and show me the face, because I feel so much of the frame is actually wasted. Like it's distracting to what is the strong part of the image, which is the eyes and the nose. I've taken on board your comment about the sharpness from eye to nose tip, which is, I agree, a challenge at times. So I might lift my score a point, but I still feel that to go to bronze where it's talking about competency across more areas, I feel that the crop has let this down. So a tighter crop would have made this work, or a looser frame in the first place would have made this work. Either of those would have done better. At this point, I think you're halfway there, but there's a bit more work to do.
Yes, I scored it 5, so I'd like to see it come up a little, but for those exact reasons. Just the overall graphic of the image hasn't sort of quite come together, but I do think it's worthy of just a little bit higher score.
Don't have to. Do I speak again or not? Okay. Like I know what you mean, Tony and Janet, but if you would have come in like if you would have changed the crop, you would have had to change the angle, because if you crop a little closer, you actually crop at the joints, which then I would have been with you. But like it's a bit of a tricky one, but because it's a tricky one, it's a little bit of an unusual one, and you know, unusual always means a little bit fresh, not just exactly what we've seen before. So yeah, reflect this on your scores. If you can.
So this now goes up to a 5. its way out of the way from a strike to the neck by a rival in a deadly duel. This image scores a 6.
I'll challenge.
Yes.
I gave it an 8, which was a silver plus. Really, this is one of those images where the caption is vital to the image, because without that caption that says this is a deadly battle, I would have thought this is a soft kind of love dance between two creatures, and it changes it entirely, and it gives that sense for me. It gives that sense for me of the menace and the beauty of nature that just sits together hand in hand in everything, and it's a bit scary, but it's a really powerful image, and it's something that I don't understand or ever see in nature, and so I think this really deserves to sit up there in the silver plus and to get to be seen in a print.
I scored it 4 because a love dance or a deadly battle, the shapes don't stand on their own as an image. You know, whatever you might bring to it, you know, apart from even hearing the title, I feel like the shape on the right hasn't quite told the story, and nor has the shape on the left. So, you know, hence the score of competent. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, I scored this a 7. I really enjoy the graphic nature of this image. I love the negative space of the white and even the shape of the white. I love how isolated the shapes are. It's an intriguing image. So I'm a little bit in contrast to you, Janet, but I hear what you're saying. But I find this really interesting, and the more you look at it, the more you can find in there. You know, the shape is unusual, which is its strength to me.
Can I make a comment? Can I tell you what I scored? I scored a 7 as well. I'm with you, Rachel. There's a lot of stuff there that is really interesting. I think the negative space between the two giraffes actually represents somewhat one of the markings of the neck, which I really like, so I saw that straight away. It is really interesting because we've had the caption first, and to me, I'm sorry, the caption didn't run with the image. I find joy and happiness and a lot of fun here, and that the author was saying that it was a battle, a lethal battle, or whatever the terminology was, I can't remember, is quite interesting because they know that, but I don't see that within this image, which is quite interesting. And I probably would have scored it higher than a 7, but the captioning was really interesting. So maybe that's an idea of thinking about what you really do say inside a caption, because you should be stating what is happening without inferring other things, as far as I'm aware. I could be wrong, but that's what I see it as being. So yeah, beautiful image. Congratulations to the author.
Yeah, I'm with Shireen. I had the same thoughts, so don't really. And so I scored a 7 too. Actually went from a 6 to 7, so I changed my score already before I put it up. Yeah, same reasons. I can't see a deadly battle in the image. Shireen pretty much said all before. So.
Fantastic. Okay, so I really appreciate all of your comments because you've spotted everything that makes this image so powerful. We have this kind of shocking contrast between these disparate shapes and this what looks like a peaceful story, and that caption is vital because we get an education into a world that none of us know about, and without that caption we would be ignorant to this. So we've not only been that was a vital caption, I reckon, Shireen. I think that we need to know this, and we didn't. And an image doesn't have to show, it could be cliche if it actually shows blood and guts and a lion tearing a limb off a tree, you know, whatever. But this is we needed to know that caption. And Janet, I love that you spotted that isolation, those disparate shapes. That puts it into a fine art category as well. And there's just this sense of a yin-yang, life and death, peace and trauma. And I think that we've all observed a truth about this image. And I like that it's already in a silver, and I'd be happy to push it up to that 8. But I'll let us as a group land on that.
This image scores a 7, a silver award. Rach, can you make colour, please?
This image is it's actually quite stunning. I saw, if I squint, it almost looks like a salt lake, and it looks like art palette. I scored it at 8, just because I've never seen anything quite like this. The photographer's taken quite a boring subject, and through clever composition and tonal range and a beautiful eye, has given us something out of the ordinary. So well done to the photographer.
Winter in farmland country, Calgary, Canada. This image scores 7, a silver award. Could I have a comment? Thanks, please.
Yeah, sure. I'm glad it got a silver. There's potential for an image like this to go a lot higher if the photographer added some elements. We've got a good balance of contrast and framing and all of the usual stuff, but a few extra elements to add some depth to the story, to the narrative of it, could perhaps lift it a little bit higher. Creatures or a human or something else going on, but quite a beautiful simple image.
Next image, please. This image scores a 5. Could I have a comment, please?
Beautiful, well, thank you. Beautiful, well-lit image featuring the boat in the foreground and has that mysterious element in the background. Again, it just needed something else to bring it up to have another level of visual communication of telling us a narrative or story within the piece.
This image scores a 6 and is a bronze award.
I think I like the challenge, actually.
We get a challenge?
I'm going to challenge. Okay. What I really like about this, it's more than what you see. There's, for me, there's some story in it. You know, like it's all the patchwork on the architecture, as we say. But then there's also, you know, there's like green spots in the architecture, and then there's the grass, and it's kind of messy, right? I mean, it's nature is not as clean and perfect as we like to be, and I think this image sort of illustrates this. You know, nature's a bit messy, and humans build everything perfect. And yes, we put nature like the grass in a square, just like which is a reflection and how it is in the background. But then nature is a little bit different, and I enjoyed that in this image, and that's why I scored a little higher, like a 7, just a silver.
Thanks, Johannes. I scored this a 5 because the things that you found in the nature that gave it strength, I saw as a distraction. But upon listening to you, I can see where you're coming from. So I will bump my score a little bit. I really enjoy the graphic nature of this. So yeah, happy to keep listening.
Thanks. Look, I agree with Johannes. Initially, from back here, I felt as though the author just added the background. Then I came up closer and looked at it, said, that's a building. And I thought, wow, to be able to see that and contain that strong graphic nature of it by including that left-hand side with the green, picking up all the green of the background, I thought is a very, very good masterstroke on the behalf of the photographer, and I think it definitely deserves a 7.
Yeah, sure. I gave it a bronze. What the photographer has done really well is taken something that already exists. Somebody put the work into the colours, the windows, that building, and the photographer saw it. And they framed it in a pretty attractive way. There's it's well balanced. What took me down was I was asking the question, what else did the photographer add to this outside of the frame and straightening those lines? And all I got was a bit of clutter and a really heavy nature. Like the bottom right is just this heavy kind of, like that green is just dark and chunky, and it really distracts from whatever the story is. I mean, not that there needs a story, don't get me wrong, but I got a bit lost in those kind of technicals down in those corners. I will listen, but that's what sat me at bronze.
No, I think it's all been said,
Yeah, yeah, good point, Nathan. The grass is green and chunky and dark because architecture and what the human built environment takes away from the light that it could get otherwise. Sorry. Kaboom. Yeah, and I think we are in the environment category, and I believe this is what the photographer wanted to say. You know, like we try to control nature, we put it in squares, and we have perfect squares on our built environment, yet nature goes a little bit against that because nature is a little bit more messy. Go for it.
So Johannes will keep your score. The judges will rescore, please. Unanimously, great speaking. This now becomes a 7 and a silver award. Great challenge. Next image, please. This image scores a 6 and is a bronze award.
I better challenge it.
You're not alone.
Okay, I gave it an 8, and as a group, I do want. It's not my expertise to shoot aerial, but I do read a lot into this that I really enjoyed. And if we can get this in a print, which is half the argument here, like get a good score and see this in print, I think this is a potentially beautiful image. So here's what I really enjoyed about it: the transition from structure to nature, the transition from these etchings at the base up to this natural kind of natural palette of the earth is quite beautiful. We've got these hieroglyphics stripped across the middle. We've got a beautiful contrast of light and dark, and I just think this is actually selected quite beautifully, and there's a lot going on, and I'd like to hear from the others and just see where we can land on this image.
I'm with you, Nathan.
I gave this a 5, competent professional practice. I see all the things that you see, Nath, but I feel like all of the hieroglyphics was a distraction for me. Like I didn't feel like there was a sense of harmony or balance, and then the blob in the middle kind of just pulls my eye, and then I'm sort of wandering around the image trying to land on something, and it doesn't feel like it rests easily on my eyes. And I am listening. I do find the colours beautiful and the textures really beautiful, but also I think that it's not quite sharp around the top edges, which I think would have enhanced this image if it was.
Sorry.
So Nick, you can speak and then Johannes.
Thanks. Look, I gave it a 5. I think it's competent. I've seen a lot of very, very good aerials, I guess, over the years, and to me it still sits at around a 5 compared to those. Now, for the composition, to me personally, if I'd have waited I don't know, maybe a fraction more, and they had a little bit more of the right-hand side back towards the middle if the plane went over, or move the camera a bit. I felt the sort of tree-shaped pattern or shape at the top right is a little bit closer to the border, and maybe it's a little bit more of the other space down the bottom that could have actually moved a little bit more to the right as well. I didn't feel as strongly about it as an aerial to go much above the 5.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to come up to a silver for this one. I was on a bronze. I really like, that what we've done to the Earth, and again, we are in the environmental category. I really enjoyed this, the lines that being carved, obviously man-made into the Earth. So that part's great. The part of this, my imagination goes, this is like a fence. That's great. But then the top half doesn't work with what I see in the bottom half. So I'm happy to come up, but not all the way, I think, for me. And yeah, and also the points that already been mentioned before. But I quite enjoy this, and I think it's a little it looks a little bit like this sort of arty aerial too much. If it'd be more authentic, I probably would even consider going higher, depending.
When I first saw the image come up, I had a visceral thing of wanting to go up and touch it, so I'd really like to see it in print, which is why I supported the image. I agree compositionally with Nick to a degree, but my eye doesn't bounce around as Rachel suggested, in the fact that there's so many different elements to rest on with so many different textures, and to me that invites me to a different narrative for each of the textures and why is it like this? What have we done to our Earth, as JR suggested? So I'm looking at this image in support of seeing it in print, as well as also actually really enjoying it compositionally from a distance, and then up close it invites you into all these different little elements and textures that have little shapes and different tonal ranges that I'm really enjoying seeing. And seeing it on a diagonal rather than a straight up and down image, which I think we see quite frequently. I think it brings a little extra element to it. So, yeah, I'm holding my score up there.
All right. First of all, thank you. All of that advice was worth hearing because none of it is wrong. I think there are elements that aren't sharp, and I appreciated the pastel quality of it, but you're right. It's not as sharp at the top as it is down near the structured bottom, and we could read it either way. I am advocating for it to be in print to really see how it shines, but we're judging something on the screen. So as a group, we do need to land on something that honours this image, but doesn't push it too high. So I don't want to force anybody out of this. I don't think the circles are they can be a distraction, but they're also a punctuation. They could be a piece of it. But honestly, I just want to land on the right score for this image. I don't need to push it. None of you are wrong on what you saw in this image. But I'm stuck on 8, and I'd love to see it in print.
So Nate holds his score. The 4 other judges please rescore. And you did move it up to a silver, a 7 and a silver award. Very nice, well done. Okay, next image please. This image scores 7 and a silver award. Nick, can I have a comment from you, please?
Look, I really enjoyed this image. Oops. I love the simplicity of it and the graphic nature of it, and the fact you've got that sky with a whole lot of negative space up the top. And when I went up close, the sharpness and the beautiful sort of motion of those trees from the bottom left up to the, I guess, the 1/3 of the right-hand side. And I really enjoyed the strong graphical nature of this. I scored it higher. I scored it an 8, and I think it deserves an 8.
quickly add something constructive. There's like on the right at the bottom, there's this bright area that almost leads your eye out. So if the photographer can darken this area down a bit, I think I would have scored it higher if it weren't for that.
Next image, please. This image scores a 6 and a bronze award.
Can I give a comment?
Yes, you can.
I absolutely love parts of this image. Like the bottom part, the light is just sublime. So for the photographer, if you want to work on this, I think there's a really bright spot here. If you darken this down, that would give it overall a bit more balance. I think a caption would have improved this, as in if you know exactly what we're looking at, that might have actually might have helped with the scoring. And yeah, if you just work on those highlights, give it a bit more balance, so it looks like this kind of towering structure that it is. That it's really like got some really beautiful parts in there.
This image scores an 8, a silver plus. Rach, could I have a comment from you, please?
This is a stunning example of powerful, well-captured lighting. Not easy to capture two very dark creatures, but that symbiotic relationship is stunning with the lighting, and well-captured, beautifully seen moment. Yeah.
Next image, please. This image scores a 5.
Thanks. I think 5's about right. If you're going to have a triptych, you really need, for my opinion anyway, to have 3 strong images working together. And what I'm seeing there is basically a slight different expression from the line in 3 different images. And I don't think it's enough there for a triptych to work. It's basically a way of filling you.
Yeah, I'm just going to comment too that the square crop on each of those images doesn't work with that orientation of the animal's body. It makes it too tight on the left and right, and it feels like it needs 3 horizontal images rather than 3 squares.
Next image, please. Scores a 5.
Yeah, I do. This is not a sexy image, but in the genre of for them, yeah. So this isn't a sexy image, but in the genre of an urban, banal type of landscape, I think they've nailed it. Even the square crop, square crop can be seen as a trend or a fad, but in this case, it suits the actual architecture that we're looking at. Everything is rectangular, square, corners. It's very non-flowing, if you like that as a word. It's very unnatural because of that lack of flow. But I like the fact that we're being presented with the banality of this structure. At the same time, there's a reference to a meek attempt to try and colour it up and make it look a little bit beautiful with some colours here and there, a bit of green or a bit of red on the balustrading. But it's also boring, and yet in the context of taking the photo, see, sometimes we don't get to choose the subject. We just have to take a good photo of the subject and portray the subject matter in a way that honours what it is. And I think this honours this beautifully. I've given it a 7. What did I give it? A 7? 7. I thought this was in that bracket that said, with what the photographer's got in front of them, they've done it beautifully. It's exactly what it should be. Well, I don't want them to try and arty it up or do anything. They've taken the graphical nature of the structure in front of them. They've chosen their square crop, which perfectly suits the subject matter. They've chosen a time of day where shadow and the lighting actually gives us some sense of three-dimensionality through the relief of the shadow and the light. So for me, that is worthy of something above and beyond just a standard shot. So that's why I've asked for a 7.
Yeah, I scored it a 4. I was really wanting to find something else within the image that was going to bring my score up. And I understand the banality of the image, but and I was looking for some shapes that were going to repeat. But, the 2 down the bottom with the 2 big windows, whilst quite interesting, then, and then the darker shape up the top didn't quite engage me enough to bring it up to a higher score.
I'm in the middle of Tony and you, Janet. I scored this a 5. I agree with everything you both said, but I think that the photographer has got an opportunity to make this a little bit more sexy. I think that you could use the use of colour and shadows to kind of punch it even further, because those shapes and shadows are really interesting. I just think that keep working on this and you could have something quite amazing here. With the banality, I think you can play with that and turn it into something almost very graphical, even more so. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll speak in support of this. I was on bronze already, and the words that keep bouncing around in my head is banal, boring, garish, everyday, all of these things that shouldn't be an award image, except that for a photographer with enough craft behind them, they can take something that's nothing and give it a bit more life. And I think they've done this really well. There's a lot in this image to be seen, and nobody would ever see except for this shot in time. And I think it's actually well seen. The light works. There's enough in those windows that keep me bouncing around for a long time. And the only thing that held me back from any higher score was those words. Is this a boring? Is this, there's nothing else in it? And yet it's also intriguing. And so I'm in support of Tony on this one. I was already on bronze, but I'll go up a point.
Thanks. Whilst I agree with a lot of the comments from my colleagues, to me something to get a higher score needs to have a stronger subject, but something that tugs at the heartstrings. So I'm looking at that, I'm saying definitely very professional competence in doing this and seeing it and putting it together, but I still don't see anything further than that to get me excited. So that's the reason I probably haven't come as high as some of my other colleagues.
Yeah, look, that's interesting comments, and I appreciate them all. I'm not sure we should be trying to make it sexy, Rach. I'm not sure that it's our job to. We all take images and we try to turn them into something, but I think sometimes as a photographer, it's about here's what's in front of you. This is what it is, and I'm going to honour the essence of what it is. It's boring, it's dull, it's drab. Look at the blinds; they're half open, half shut, kind of bent. Everything's old. But everything that the photographer has brought and the way they presented it honours all of that and doesn't try to make it something it isn't. And in a world and a time where photographs 99.9% of the time are considered to not be telling the truth, we have an honest image. And for that, I want to give it a 7. So that's what I'd like you to consider.
Yes, I'll challenge. And there's the microphone. Yeah, look, I scored this an 8. From back here, perhaps it didn't look as though it's as high. Then I got closer and I had a look at those delicious tonal values going right across that image. and then the feathers opening up slightly and this eye peering at me in between that. And to me, this is something that does tug at the heartstrings. I'd like to implore my judges to come back, have another close look at this. It's more than what you initially see in it. And to be able to capture wildlife like this, and I've attempted, many times to try and do this in the past, this has really succeeded in my opinion, and is definitely worth a higher score.
Yeah, appreciate that, Nick. And I must admit, I went looking for the eye, and I think you're right, it's there. I'd like to see it more defined, like not so much sharpness, but it is half hidden by the feather. I gave it a 4, and I gave it that because while those elements that you talked about are well done, the rest of the image falls away for me. It's cropped too tight, so the left and right with cropping off that little bit of wing, the separation, and I understand difficulties in photographing wildlife, but we still have to judge the image. So when I look at the edges, it just falls into the black. The separation, even through the middle feathers, when we look at these, it's just not quite there. And I'm taking into account, I'm looking at a digital image on a screen, but I still feel like a little bit more space and a little bit more separation with the outside. So the edges of some of those wings are just falling into black, and there's no real definition of the edge. All of those things sort of needed to be corrected or lifted or brought to another level for me to go up into a sort of 6-7 range. But you're right, that to capture the animal like that, if those eyes had been a tiny bit higher, we would have seen the full eye, which would have been better. But I'm considering what you said, but I couldn't see myself going to a 7 or whatever.
I had this firmly in an 8 right on first look because of the engaging element, particularly with the eye from back here. But then as I looked at it a little bit more, I felt like the almost the rule of thirds within where the eye has been placed by the photographer is not quite there. I would have liked to have seen, like Tony said, some more either negative space surrounding the image so it's not encapsulated so tightly. But yes, certainly listening, Nick, because I did have it on 8, ready to flip it around, and then I pulled it back to a 7. But definitely a beautiful image.
I agree with everything that everyone said. I gave this a 5. I think it's just that constraint of the framing pulled me down. But I can see a character like Dracula in there, and that's what I was drawn to that. And for a photographer to capture wildlife and make me think of Dracula is pretty cool. So I am also listening.
I really enjoyed this image as soon as I saw it. I had the concept of a performance or a cabaret performance with lots of fabric floating around, and to bring that element into nature and have an animal in wildlife to present that way, I think is quite a difficult technique, especially for a photographer to capture. I was hoping to go higher, but the heavy elements not being seen on the screen that we're viewing it on here, to see what the bird is sitting on or standing on. If you go in close, you can see the detail is there. I'd love to see this in print, bringing all of that detail out where you can actually see it, but we are judging what we're seeing on the screen here. And I forgave that crop a bit for the technical difficulty, and I thought it was a superior visual element of communication, so that's why I scored it where I did.
Look, thanks very much, and I appreciate the informed opinion of my colleagues. But again, having seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bird photographs in my time, a lot of them being birds on sticks, for somebody to see that and to capture a bird photograph in this way definitely deserves more recognition. And I implore my judges, please have another look at it and get your scores up.
discussions. Now goes up to a silver. Seven and silver award. Congratulations. Next print, please. Next image, please. This image scores a 5. Could I have a comment from Karen, please?
This image is a beautifully captured image of a lovely landscape. It sits within that professional practice range of capture, bringing out the colours and tonality of the image. I feel a crop is a bit tight on the right-hand side if there was anything to be improved.
Next image, please. This one does have a caption. Male splendid wren, changing from its non-breeding season plumage, left image to its breeding season plumage, to right image. Non-breeding. This image scores 6, a bronze award.
I went to 7 on this one. I think the title helps in terms of the, I hate the word narrative, but it does. It gives us an understanding of why we have 3 images and not 1. I think the slight shift in gesture of the animal, the fact that on the right the bird's ready to take off and do what it has to do at that time of year, adds a little hint of humour for me. But it's technically really, really well done. The colour palette on this, the balance of that background colour and the use of a shallow depth of field, or at least making sure that the background is non-distracting, all of these elements are a very high standard of craft. Shooting an animal that, for those who've tried to shoot a blue wren, know that it flits pretty quick, so you've got to take a lot of shots to get that image. But going up and seeing the exquisite detail in the feathers, the beautiful use of the colour to keep it moving us from left to right. If you look at it, you can see the animal becomes more attractive, more seductive as you move from left to right. So all of the subtleties that have been put into this at a very high level of craftsmanship, for me, means it really does sit nicely as a silver award. So that's what I'd like you to consider.
Yes, I didn't quite see it that way. I felt, even though the narrative is there and we're seeing the difference between how the blue wren evolves, the choice of placing the 3 images together just doesn't work. Particularly with the little stick that the bird is standing on. I sort of felt that the image on the right was quite strong, and that could have worked well on its own. Yeah, so it just didn't sit together for me as a 3, unfortunately.
I think Tony highlighted that the caption brings out the purpose behind the photographer's use of triptych, and I really enjoy that you've brought that to my attention, Tony. I think that being nature, we can't suggest that the stick should be anything other than what that animal has landed on. So I am definitely listening, and I'm thinking about coming up with you, Tony, because I think, as you say, the body positionings of the bird do tell the story as well.
Yeah. Look, I agree with my colleagues and the comments and stuff. Certainly, I agree with Janet. I think the one on the right really is the strongest of the 3. I found the crop just a little tight. I'm not sure whether the photographer had a little bit more leeway in the raw files, maybe to give it a little bit more space. Other than that, I'm quite happy to bring it up.
Yeah, Tony has support with me. I gave this a 7. I really enjoy that the photographer is teaching us a little bit about these birds, as well as presenting 3 standalone beautiful images. Everything else I think has been said. I actually really enjoy that every little stick is quite different as well. It just enhances that story of change and growth. Yeah, beautiful. I'm not sure I enjoy the square so much. I wonder if that could be a different shape potentially to tell the story. But yeah, I gave it a solid silver.
Thanks, guys. I think if we go to a rectangle, either horizontal or vertical, we're going to end up with more negative space, which takes away. So I think the square works. And Janet, you're right. The image on the right is the strongest, but I think that's the whole point. That on the left and in the middle, the bird is not really attractive to its partner. The whole idea and what we're being told is when it comes around to that time that it has to attract attention in order to propagate and expand the species, then it needs to be attractive and it needs to pull your attention to, hey, look at me now, I'm ready to go. And I think that's what happens. We get taken to the right. So I see a strong reason for that, which supports the triptych and supports that movement of colour and supports the fact that the one on the right is the strongest image. So, yeah, anyway, I think that's where it should be. See where we go.
Scores a 6 and a bronze award.
I'll challenge it. Just yeah, I'll challenge. I challenge it. Do justice, lest someone out there like me for it. So, no, actually, I shouldn't say that. I found this immediately came around. It immediately gave me a sense of being in that place. Almost could smell it. You know, like that feeling of walking on layers and layers and layers of fallen leaves. Now, I think it's a multiple, like a composite. I'm pretty sure, but I've been caught out before. I think the use of colour and the fact that the use of texture gives me a sense of a tapestry of autumn. So in terms of an illustrative piece or an illustrative fine art type of landscape, I think it's been done really, really well. There's a sense that as you look at it, as I look around the edge, I feel like, okay, there's a couple of areas that have gone a little bit darker and maybe not barren, but less leaves. But as I sit back and look at it from the distance, I feel like that gives me almost a negative vignette. Most of the colour, most of the texture and the details happening more in the middle of the image, but the complementary colours, the sense of tapestry and the sense of, I'm going to use your words, Nick,
Yeah.
a sense of place.
A sense of place.
I feel like I'm standing in the middle of a forest or looking down at the leaves at my feet, and it really takes me there. So as a communicative piece of photography, I think it's been done extremely well. Technically, when I go up there, it's perfect. Great exposure, no blown out highlights really, no shadow detail missing where it shouldn't be. Everything about it has been done technically well, aesthetically and as a piece of communication. You talk about, what'd you say, pull at the heartstrings? Yep. Well, not everything's about falling in love with, but I certainly feel like, wow, this makes me feel like autumn. The colour palette itself actually has that sense of warmth without being hot. So all the little subtleties come together to create a strong piece of communication.
Yep. Look, I agree with Tony to a certain extent, and I wanted to score this high, and I got up close and I looked at it, and I agree with everything that Tony said, but I did find my eyes just wandering around the image, trying to find somewhere to rest, and I couldn't find that. And I think if an image is going to score very highly, it needs to have a narrative and a context and a strong enough subject matter to be able to at least get your eyes resting somewhere to complete the narrative. And I'm thinking, yeah, it's autumn, the colours are great, it's very competently done, but for me to score really high, it needs to have something else in it, and I couldn't find it.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Tony said. I think the word here is subtle, you know, and I underscored it. I scored it a bronze. I actually thought I underscored it after, so I was glad that Tony challenged it. Yes, I was missing this one big narrative, you know, subject too. But but it's really intriguing, and it's got a 3D quality to it. And yes, it's just leaves, but this is leaves really well photographed. And I sort of was wondering whether there's a double exposure, and I think that confused me. This double exposure, is this double exposure? Is this technical? Is this real? But for what it's very enjoyable. It's you know, how are you going to photograph leaves better than this? And it stands on its own, and I think it's pretty good, you know. And I'm definitely going to come up to a silver.
Yes, I didn't quite know where to score it because I thought, oh, it's a bunch of leaves, but I really enjoy the overall look of it, and you know, the more it sits there, you sort of the beautiful golds and purples and the silver of the leaf as it sort of wends its way up and around. There is a certain symmetry within the image, so I think I will be raising my score.
I scored this up there with Tony in the silver range because I did think it was an excellent piece of visual communication. I saw it as the textured leaves, or the leaves that had become transparent, as the highlight of the image. My eyes rest within the reds, but they bounce between those triangle of transparent or silver toned leaves, which I really enjoy, and I enjoyed it up close and from a distance. So to me, that highlights it is an excellent piece of visual communication, and that's why I scored it in the range I did.
Yeah, I suggest that not all images need a narrative. I really do strongly feel that personally. I think some images are a celebration of aesthetic, and I find this is a celebration of aesthetic. Having said that, I can acknowledge that when we look at an image, we'd like to go somewhere, and sometimes it takes us to a point, and sometimes it invites us to move around the image. And there is actually 4 leaves that keep me moving around. There's the 3 transparent ones, or the lighter ones, and then there's the yellowy golden one down here. And I feel like that just keeps me in that middle part of the picture, but invites me just to keep moving. So as a celebration of aesthetic rather than a narrative, it allows me to bring to it some part as the viewer of my feelings around leaves and autumn and things that can't be photographed literally or specifically, such as, you know, emotion or feeling. That's what this is bringing through. So it's harder to kind of look at and go, bang, that's what it's about. But the longer I sit with it, and the three-dimensionality is coming through more and more the longer I sit with it as well. So anyway, I wasn't saying 9s, 10s. I'm thinking silver because it is very strong and powerful, and it's a very beautiful celebration of aesthetic, less of a narrative, more of the aesthetic. That's what I'm looking for.
What did it end up on before? Had a 6. It was on a 6 of bronze.
This image scored 7, silver award.
Great job. And again, we've gone up to a silver. 7 for a silver award. Great discussion, guys. Next image, please. This image scores 7, a silver award.
I'd like to challenge this. I scored is a gold. I mean, what more do you want? I think the image is striking, beautiful aesthetically. It's got beautiful color palette. And then when you go closer, you see you still see the eye of the bird, where the beak is and the wings come out. This is really hard to kind of get. It's a single capture. Most of the time, where the wings are when they're spread out, they're just not in the right place. But this is in the right place. Everything is in the right place, and it's sharp where it should be sharp, and it's got a beautiful feel. So I think this is way better than a silver, because those images are really hard to get. It's beautifully treated, like everything's kind of spot on. So I really encourage you to have another look and come up with me.
Look, I'm going to go up on this, and I appreciate Johannes's comments, and I think it got me to look at it again. Initially, I thought maybe too much negative space down the bottom right, but then again, I looked at it, and the diagonal of that bird coming in that gives it power, movement, and direction. Now that I've gone up, I've seen the eye. Thanks, Johannes. Yeah, I'm going to go up on this.
Yeah, I'll come up a bit. I'm not convinced the eye's there enough for me. I didn't actually find the eye first time, and now when you said you saw it, I went up, and it's still mostly hidden by the wing. There's a hint of the glint of the bottom of the eye just being revealed, and if that eye had been there and we could see it, then yeah, I'm with you. I'd go 9 or 10, but I'm happy to come up a point or so. And I agree with the dynamics, I agree with the negative space, I like the gesture of the bird, the power, the drama, there's energy in this image, all of those things are working, but when we're talking about giving it excellence in all areas, I don't see excellence in a couple of areas, so for me it'll be maybe an 8.
Yes, I scored it firmly in the silver. Just sort of really quite enjoying the tonal range of the image as well. You know, those beautiful browns that are coming in. Almost it looks like a black and white, but that element as well. So I think it is worth, so thanks for challenging, certainly listening still, JR.
I definitely see masterful technique and good production in this image. So I was already up in the Silver Plus range, and I'm listening to everyone's comments to consider coming up to gold with Johannes.
Yeah, I think I really like the eye just peeking out a little bit, and if you had more eye, maybe the bird would be more tilted to the side, and with this you had less dynamics. So I think, and it's a single capture. I mean, this is like nature found, captured, very hard to photograph, very hard to get like this beautifully treatment. Like Janet said, the browns, you know, it just kind of, it adds this beautiful feel to this image, and we don't see images like this very often on that high quality, I believe, and I'm very happy with gold.
So what did you do?
I gave it an 8. I gave it a 9. Sorry, 9 gold. 9 is gold. Yeah, come up with me.
Lovely. We have our first goal for the day. Well done. Great discussions, guys, and congratulations to the author and photographer on our very first goal. All righty. Next image, please.
That sporting look, like it's really pivotal moments, and it's great that the photographer's seen that light and got the angle from across the field.
This image scores 7, a silver award. Oh, sorry, yes, please make a comment. Sorry.
This image has a lot of impact up front, and the colour palette's beautiful. Where it could be improved is the tonal control of the tones around the image. So the left-hand bottom side and the bottom of this image are way too bright for the rest of the image, and they're actually distracting and pulling us down. The top right, the saturation of the gold is very strong. So where you got these beautiful ethereal qualities, almost translucent, pearlescent, if you like, in the middle of the image, that's the strength of the image, but it's being competed by, or competing against, these areas on the outside that are just pulling us out. So get that right and you would jump 2 points.
This image scores 7, a silver award.
I'll challenge it.
No, you go ahead. No, you go ahead.
You can challenge it.
Look amazing. Look, wow. I saw that and I immediately saw gold. I think to see something like that and to capture it the way it's been captured, and the strong elements of the diagonal slowly increasing as we go from left to right, and the colour palette just, it's not overly striking, but it's so beautifully done. Guys, to me this is really gold.
You can, but she's over there.
I can be Janet. Yeah, look, I'm definitely listening. My initial response was a professional practice with a bit of zest. I was thrown out by all of this white, this blocky, blown out whites, and the saturation just jarred me a little bit. But I'm saying these negatives first because the closer inspection reveals all those things that you saw, Nick. These verticals that aren't straight are actually straight. Like the black lines stripping between these shapes are perfectly straight. It's just the geometry around it that's different, and that's quite clever. I just wasn't sure whether there's more that needs to happen to this image to get some depth and not just be this kind of flat, contrasty, saturated image. But I'm definitely listening. I'll listen, and my scores will shift.
Yeah, so the couple of things that kept me out of a 9 or a 10 were just that little bit of highlight on the right is probably a little bit too much, and a couple of the sky bits, the little clouds. I take those two areas away, that's what held me back. The rest of it's sublime, and there's actually different images. Forget what the picture is in the bottom of the building, just the graphic of it, and the subtle use of those straight lines that aren't straight, and the, as you said, the repetition and the stepping, the colour palette itself, the blues against the gold, bouncing so beautifully. But then when you do look at the building and come in, it's a whole new picture. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on there, almost got a cartoon-ish feel to it. So often when we see these effects, there's that the effect itself takes over. I don't think the effect takes over. I think there's a beautiful balance between using colour harmony to get our attention, using design to get our attention, and using all this subtle detail and repetition in the bottom to get our attention, and they balance each other beautifully. I gave it an 8. I thought that's where it should sit. I can see why Nick went higher. I had a couple of reasons holding me back, but I'll see where we go. But I'm on an 8.
Okay. Yeah, I enjoyed it for the obvious, for the reflection, for the play on all this, but I kind of was with Nathan with the blocky whites. Technically, it also like the interest from the building, I didn't really like grab me as being super interesting. Like the interesting part is in the effect and the mirror, but the actual building, like what was the effect that was put on, like, you know, what happened there, it didn't like evoke too much emotion in me. You know, it's a great day with the clouds and all, so it's a great day to photograph. What also threw me out a little bit is on the third bar column on the right. You know, if the photographer would have moved just a little right, you could have eliminated this, what I think is a distracting line. So that's kind of what kept me from going up.
Nice work on challenging this, Nick. I love that we get to talk about this. This is a really fun image. I gave it a 7. I'm going to come up a little bit. I just found the top part of the sky a little bit heavy and clunky, and I feel like even if the sky was just a slightly different colour than we're seeing in the buildings, it would have added an extra element. We would have had more balance. But I really love that everywhere you look in this image, you see a different image. And I'm enjoying the dynamicness of this. And I don't know if I can push to gold, but I am listening. I will pull my score up a little bit higher, though, in support. Yeah.
Thanks. Look, thanks again for all the discussion, and I think my colleagues have brought up some very, very, very relevant information. To me, there are times when the creative has got to overcome the technical, and for me, this is one of them. So all I can say to my colleagues is, yes, you can sit there long enough and you can pull it to bits technically, but for Christ's sake, look at the creative.
This is absolutely gorgeous. I'm really, really enjoying it. I think it is has masterful technique, and the texture and detail within the image is sublime. There is so many different little textures, but yet the colour palette just holds it all together. And there's so many different places to visit on this image. It's really beautiful.
Janet, do you want to hop in? This image scores a 5. Janet, can I have a comment from you? Oh, would you like to? I'm changing. Would you like to tell it? Yes, sure. That's okay. Yes, you can tell.
Yes. Oh, wow. Yes, yes. So I scored this a 7. I'd like to see it come up as a 7 or up a little. It's just got such a beautiful feel to it. It's just like the little creatures, they're holding hands. I can see the eye in the little creature on the left. It's like they're having a little chat about the lack of good weather for them. So, you know, I know there's a few things that, you know, the foreground, there could have been a little bit more space there, but just the actual content of the image, I think, is worthy of a better score. The story of the image. Yeah, so I'd like to see it just come up a little, perhaps.
Kelly, what happens?
I gave it a score that's approaching professional practice, which is a little bit lower than Janet's score. The shining moment in this image is that they must be holding hands, and there's a little face looking out, and we can feel some whimsy, and I understand that must be what the photographer saw. And beautiful sight, good capture, that's the beginning. But at professional practice, we'd balance the light, we'd consider the texture, we'd probably give a bit more space for the crop, or give it a more ambitious crop to really hone in on that story. There's just so many extra pieces now to do to award the emotion that obviously the photographer saw and that Janet kind of acknowledged and praised so well. It could be black and white to get the texture out on the fur and to remove the harsh midday light and to balance the shadows and to pull the highlight, all the things. So a lot of potential, but this particular version of the image, I couldn't bring it too high.
Yeah, I was the same. I was professional practice, and I thought I was thinking between 4 and 5. Just because, like you know, Janet, I love the feel. I love this kind of companionship of the birds. I saw that. But then when I look at the photography and what the photographer's done, it's unfortunately cropped at the bottom, so the birds are just cropped where they shouldn't have been cropped. The bird on the right looks away, and there's just a tiny bit of beak. I would have really liked to see a bit more like the side of the face there, just a bit more. And it's just those little things. I think that I already would have gone higher. Yeah, it's just those things that kept me from going, oh yeah, you know, because it's I really like what the photographer's seen. I encourage the photographer to, you know, you already see the stuff and then you learn those technical things, you know, watch your cropping in particular, and then watch like just the details, and you'll be on your way, I think.
I'm okay
Yep.
with yours.
You're right, yeah. Look, I'm good, yeah.
Okay, and isn't it great that we can talk about a picture and sort of almost empower the photographer? You know, we don't want to lose the integrity of the shot, though, because really part of the story is the fact that it is taken at a bright time of day. So we don't want to lose that. But on the same score, it would have been nice to have maybe not made the foreground there compete with the narrative. But even still, I do think it, that nice shallow depth of field that the photographer has given us. There is a little more here, I think, than the score that it has got. So maybe just lifting the score a little would be nice.
Yeah, look, I gave it a silver plus. Yeah, sure. Look, I think it's worth more than a bronze. That really powerful curve that's coming up from the bottom right up to the top left, the very subtle nature of the tonal values within that amazing negative space at the top right, capturing something like this and finishing it off in this manner, I think definitely deserves at least a silver, if not a silver plus. And I implore my colleagues to come and have another look at this and have a look at the way it's been finished off. I think it's definitely worth more than, what do you say, the overall? It's a bronze, yeah. It's definitely worth more than the bronze. We should encourage the photographer in this particular one.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, I'm listening. I scored this a 4. I might have been a little bit too harsh. I feel like I really enjoyed the curves and the tonal values, and I think I was just looking for something else to keep my attention. Yeah, I'm listening.
Yes, I scored it an 8, and just sitting back and stepping up within the image, the strong shape on the right, but then those beautiful step ups as you sort of merge up in with the image. It's got a graphic element that you could just sit back and enjoy for days. It's absolutely stunning. So solidly into the number 8 for me.
All right, I know there's 2 more people that can speak, so I need some answers. Because I had a 4 as well, and I'm absolutely listening. I punished it for the way it appears on a screen, and I hate doing that because we love judging prints, and this is on a screen, and on this screen it feels washed out. It feels like this is such a play of contrast, and we don't have much contrast, so we're going to call it high key and fine art or blown out. It's really tricky. I know there's detail, so my question is, talk to me about getting around that. And also, there's a confusing bit in the top right that isn't quite edited out. Is that a cloud? Is it not? Isn't edit? I don't care too much, but it's there. And the structure of it, it seems like there's too much. There's many, many stories in there, and if we pull some of that back, crop it in a little bit, I can find more interest and complexity than this whole thing that feels like a literal shot tilted too far over. So I've got a bit of vertigo. So there's shallow perspectives, and I'm really, really listening. But if you could kind of address those, the last 2 on the mic, then I can move a bit.
Okay. Yes, I have been a bit critical of this one too, but like bronze, in bronze it says high level of visual communication, and that's exactly what I didn't see. I didn't see I seen a building and I seen a nice structure, and I really seen like the technical abilities of the photographer and how they treated the image, which I really appreciate. Having said that, I also felt you could have really gone more dark and contrasty on the actual circle thing, the rim, just to give it a bit more punch and actually give it like highlight an element. So that's kind of where I said, but I'm listening too, but I didn't see the communication. You know, I didn't see a point of interest that says, "Hey, look at this is amazing," sort of thing. So that's what kept me low. But I'm still listening.
Okay. Look, the temptation, I think, when you're taking a lot of architecture is to overdo the contrast. And I think the whole point of this, and I hear what Nathan had to say, is the fact that it's not overly contrasted, just getting a sort of a squeezed-in nature of the tonal values. And that is the very reason why I'm sitting here looking at this very strong curve, because of the way the photographers treated those tonal values. And that's why I think it's got to go up a little bit higher than what my colleagues have judged it.
Fantastic. So Nick, you hold your score at 8 and put the other 4 just to score. So unfortunately no movement, this still scores a 6 and a bronze award, which is still a great score. Great discussion. Nick, I'll give you a little break. You've been on for judging the environment category. Thank you to Camera Electronic for the sponsorship. Next image, please. This image scores 5. Can I have a comment from Johannes, please? Short and sharp, please.
Yeah, I absolutely love the creativity of this. I just feel like if you crop it on the top, crop that sky out as much as you can without being too tight, I think that would have already made it a bit more impactful. And then what's your focus? I believe maybe if you would have focused on right the front of where the water comes out, that would have really enhanced the image, I think. But yeah, really, really well seen and
Scores a 5.
sorry, but yes, I like to challenge. Yeah. Yeah, I scored this in a silver, and I was quite comfortable with the silver, and I believe it's quite it's a considered image. It's got strong visual elements, you know, nicely handled with the backlight, and you know, there's a couple of bits and pieces I would have changed, but yeah, I was really quite comfortable with the silver, so I'd really like to hear what you guys have to say.
Yes, it is quite an engaging image. I guess the element that let me down was the shape going out from the middle. There was just a sort of a loss of graphic here for me. Yeah, and I was trying to put my finger on what could be improved within the crop or the within the shapes, but then I was left with, I didn't know what, you know, I was sort of fighting my way around the picture. Yeah, so I was a little bit perplexed as to where it could sit, but then I got stuck within the big dark shape up to the right-hand corner. That wasn't leading me anywhere, so that's where I sat.
Yeah, I thought it was an opportunity missed, Johannes. I can't go with you. I feel that should have been cropped in tighter to really emphasise the arc of this bridge. I think this is not really helping, it's distracting. I think the verticals, it's just got a little bit of that tilt in, and perspective control and just a little bit of shift would have really lifted this image. And the tonal range isn't really as good as it could be. I think we need a little more detail in the blacks, and although it's backlit clouds, and I get that, just a little softer tones through this image would have made a far more dramatic image, particularly with that tighter crop and bringing those perpendiculars up. So for me it was around that 5-6 mark, not so much higher, but I could certainly see the potential with a very little bit of work that would take it a lot further.
I agree with everything that Tony just said. I gave it a 5. I could potentially push it up a little bit, but yeah, for Tony's reasons, yeah.
Yeah, I can. I hear everyone saying I was the same as Janet's comments. What really let me down was I didn't know where to go with my eye. There's lots of different elements. I can see there is potential water image in here if it was just treated with the verticals and the soul blacks and the tonal range. But it's got potential. But for me, I was happy where I was sitting.
Yes, I agree with everything Tony said too, and that's why it didn't make me go up to 8. Like I see those things, and I felt like it's just a little better than professional, definitely better than professional practice. And I felt it's got some visual communication with the factory. So that's why I am where I am, and I understand where you are. But I feel like a bronze be really good for this image, and because there is, I mean, there's details in the blacks and all. It's just yes, I mean, I get all this, and that's why I see what you see. But I feel like it's not as just a block black over here. There's some skill has been brought to this image, and also skill in seeing and capturing it. And I like to reward that.
And it has moved to a 6, a bronze award. Next image, please. This image scores 7, a silver award.
Yeah. I just, when I first saw this image, it was like before I heard the caption. I kind of wish I didn't hear the caption, to be honest, because I saw so much story in there. Then the caption sort of made it really literal for me. I liked that it wasn't literal, and I had to really think about what it was and the shape. So it was very pleasing. I really liked how it just sort of like it was this illustrative sort of like shape that was coming up, and it was just really pleasing to look at. And I couldn't figure out what it was. The caption sort of stopped me from going higher because it became really little. Then I was like, oh, okay. But then also I was like thinking, well, that would be so hard to capture a dragonfly's wings. That's insane. So yeah, I think it deserves what it's got. Yeah.
Next image, please. This image scores a 6, a bronze award.
Yeah, stunning image, lots to see, lots of graphical elements. I really enjoy that kind of crater-like shadow on the right-hand side there. This image really rewards you for going close up, but even from far away, it has impact. So nice work, photographer.
Next image, please. This image scores a 5. Oh, sorry, did you change that one? Sorry. This image scores a 5. Challenge? Challenge.
So I sort of had a 7, and then I flicked it around to an 8. So that's why. So it still score a 5? Oh, 5. Okay. Yeah, it's just so pretty. And it's not an exceptional building, but the way that the photographer has actually delivered the tones with the greens and the blues and that beautiful creamy brown colour and the beautiful thirds and the sky, I think it's just lovely. Absolutely well captured, well presented.
Thanks, Janet. I really enjoy the composition of this image, and I wonder if the photographer can get back to this spot, try and photographing it in all sorts of different skies, all sorts of different ways to potentially bring more to this. It's just sitting a little bit flat for me. Maybe if there was a sunrise or a sunset, we'd get lots of different colours in those reflections. I really enjoy the shapes that the photographer has brought here, but I gave it a 4, just approaching professional practice, just needed to see a little bit more in it to push it into the awards range.
Yeah, look, I kind of between the two ladies. I think it's a great composition, apart from the fact that there's about a centimetre too much on the right. I think cropping through half the window doesn't help the picture. It would be stronger if we'd gone through the brick, just to give us, so we don't have a high key, open-ended edge. And the same with the cloud at the top right and slightly on the edge. So those white bits on the edge on the right, it kind of feels a bit loose. It doesn't hold it together. I do like the composition in terms of the grass or the foliage at the bottom. And then when we look from the top of the foliage up, we have an equal amount of building and sky, and I think that balance is really nice. I love the interplay between the blues and the browns in the building, because the browns sort of connect us to the earthy foliage at the bottom, and the blues reflect in the windows, reflect us to the upper part. And the white and blue panels kind of echo the white and blue of the clouds. But the overall image itself is possibly a little flat, particularly above the foliage. And if it had a little bit more contrast, but mid-tone contrast, not blacks and whites, and then just a tad more sort of impact or punch, if you like, out of the colour, I think we'd have a much stronger image. So at the moment, for me, it was sitting around that professional practice bracket, not so much up in the silver or higher. But I'm still thinking about it.
Yeah, I think Rachel and Tony have said everything I was thinking about this image already.
Not really, everything's been said.
Yeah, I think it's just sitting quite nicely. I agree with all those comments, but I think it just deserves a little higher score than what it's actually received, and especially with how it's sitting here and how the photographer has presented this image. It just deserves a little higher score.
Yeah, so I scored it a little bit higher, just because it made me think about it. When I got up from far away, I was like, oh, what's about here? And I can see a bit of grain and like noise in the sky part. And I thought, oh, But then when I got up, I thought that figure down the bottom, at the back, was like a human or a story. And then it sort of took me into the picture a bit further. And I thought, well, that deserves a bit higher than that. But I feel like obviously there's some technical things that are improving, but I gave it a little bit higher just because it made me think about it a lot more.
Yeah, beautifully seen, beautiful light, beautiful treatment, love the color palette, nice square crop, nothing really to add. Yeah, well seen.
This image scores a 5. Janet, can I grab a quick comment from you, please?
Beautiful colour palette, I guess, and such a gorgeous sunset and the clouds and everything. I scored it around the competent range. I guess, to bring it up into the silver range, I'm just needing to have something more to engage me rather than just the tree and the beautiful sky. Yes, but it is a beautifully, competently caught image.
image scores a 5. Ben, can I,
You got it.
yep, you've got a comment.
Yeah, I'll try to be quick. Crop, great scene, like really well seen, but then a little crop on the right, I think, would have enhanced the balance of the image. Maybe even crop from the top, bottom, and also like black and white. I think black and white would have really worked with this image, even though it's a bushfire image and you want a color, but that's kind of where I'm sitting. Well, I think you could play around with and see if you like it.
Next image, please. This image scores a 4. Can I have a quick comment from you, please? Me? Yep. Oh, Karen, sorry.
I think there's an absolutely whacker of an image in here. We judge off the screen that we can see, and unfortunately it's too dark for us to actually see the outline of the image here. So knowing that we're judging off a calibrated screen monitor is how the entrants should present their work, and I think this image would have actually come up quite high if we could see the rest of the detail in the image. And it has such a narrow depth of field in what we can see. It's unfortunate that we've missed out on seeing what could be a beautiful piece of work.
This image scores a 6 and a bronze award. Would you like to challenge?
Yeah, I would like to challenge this. And challenge this for vision. The photographer seen something and elevated it in a way that, you know, it's not just what we see out there in nature unless you're kind of really paying attention. And this photographer has paid attention. And, you know, the little bird as an extra, you know, I think it's really great. And I think if the bird would have been at a different angle where you see it better, and I'm just saying the things that you're going to tell me, I would have been high. I would have been sort of in gold range, but I definitely think this is better than a bronze. You know, beautiful colors, and then with the shadow and the bird, it really adds something outside of the normal. So, and that's why I scored it. I scored it an 8 because I thought silver plus. Yes, there's a couple of technical things and, you know, a little crop thing that I would have liked not to say, but at the same time, this is better than you know, this is better. So I'd like to hear what you have to say.
Thanks, Johannes. I reckon this could have been better. I would have loved to have seen less of this and made it even more abstract, because the colours and the lines are quite interesting, and without the bird, even if it was cropped to a square, that would have been a really powerful image to me, because we wouldn't have had so much of what it was, and it would have created a lot of questions and intrigue, and those textures and those colours would have been more ambiguous, and it would have been an abstract kind of fine art piece. So I feel like I could go higher if I didn't know what it was and couldn't see it so literally.
Yeah, so I'm hearing all the comments. I thought the exact same thing. I thought this would be amazing if it was cropped as a square, kept the bird in, and the boat thing was in the centre or something like that. I think the photographer does have vision, and I can fall in love with parts of this image, but where I thought it just could have gone, you know, I think, you know, to go higher, I think just to finish it, just to, okay, let's play around with crop, let's recrop this, let's pull that out, pull that back in, because there's elements in there that could go to a gold, like you said. But the artist is not telling us to go there because we're looking at so many different elements. I just really want a clear message or a completely non-clear message that makes me think more about it.
I'm enjoying the contrast in this image, and I do believe this photographer has had a vision and has excellent visual communication with what's presented to us. Although I do agree with the comments, which is why I didn't go higher, because it is literal that we can see what it is, and it would have been even higher if it wasn't literal. And I'm enjoying the contrast that this image brings from one side to the other, but the shadow play that they've worked with as well is excellent.
Yeah, because I think it sits at the bronze, and I definitely think, 7, excellent visual communication and treatment of the subject. I think that's been achieved here. And I also think, square crop, if there would have been a square crop, you would have had this element on the left that you would have had to crop out, then you would have lost the symmetry a little bit. And maybe even we look at this, we don't even know what it is. And, it took me like a second or two to realize what this is at the beginning, which is something I really love when this happens. So I think excellent visual communication, that's a silver. I think it's definitely deserving a silver. And I hope you see that too.
This is now gone up to a 7 and a silver award. Next image, please. This scores a 7 and a silver award. Ben would like to challenge?
So I went 9 on this, just because my eye just keeps going around and around. I love that the artist has made that top left corner different, instead of just going complete perfect. Like it just makes you think about what it is. I love the texture in the shadows. It's like falling down. I really don't know what this is, but I feel it really pleasing to the eye. And there's so many stories to be told in there about, it's almost like a human body in the shape. You know what I mean? And it's almost like maybe a window to some future being or something like that. So I feel like the top corner with the open sort of eye-shaped ovals, and it comes and the textures all fall down. It feels like almost sad. So something's decaying, and then it's also, but it's, I just really like the image and stuff like that. I love the treatment. I think that the lighting and the contrast is perfect. I love the details in the shadow. And I like how they haven't just, every single corner is different, but almost the same as well. So I love it how it's just imperfectly perfect.
Cool, Ben. Thanks for this. I scored this a 7, solid straight into a silver award. I don't know if I can come up with you. I almost struggled to put it into silver, but because of all the same reasons you loved it, I pushed it into a silver award. I feel like it just needs something else, or a more finessed handling to pull it into gold for me. But I am listening.
Yeah, I'm enjoying the colour palette. I am definitely enjoying the asymmetrical proportions of whatever these shapes are. My mind goes to seed pods, but I'm not clear on that. I looked for the repetition and the shadowing to see if they were all different elements, and essentially to me they are, and that's why I stood it in the score range that I did. I do really enjoy the image, and I'm listening to see where I pulled it up, but there's just something there for me that doesn't take it up to gold, and I would like to hear why I should bring it up there.
Yeah, I really enjoyed all the elements in the image that Ben was talking about. And I would have really liked to go higher on this, but what I've seen on screen here, it's not sharp. Like, I really would have liked to see more sharpness in there, and that's why. So I scored it 7. I wanted to go 8, but it's like, it's not sharp, right? But I mean, it's a single shot, right? It's an environment, so this is seen, this is captured in one single go. This is not like put together or anything. So, and the color palette and the treatment as such is really beautiful. So I see all the elements, and the sharpness kept me back, but I'd like to hear what Ben has to say.
Nothing to add.
Okay, so I hear what everyone's saying. When I first scored it, I was going to go silver plus, and then I was reading my gold, outstanding level creativity, conceptual development, outstanding visual communication, and emotion and impact. So I just felt the emotion impact, and I thought it was outstanding creativity. So that's why I pushed from an 8 to a 9. I really feel like we could even come up to a silver plus, maybe not a gold, but that's the reason why I chose that score, because all those elements just impacted me and I felt connected to it.
So Ben will hold his score at 9 with the please read score. And it has moved 1 point for an 8 for a silver plus. Well done. Fantastic. Congratulations to the photographer. Next image, please. This image scores a 7, a silver award.
This is beautifully captured. That lighting is exquisite and has some like Van Gogh type reference to my mind. I really love the way that they've used the lighting to like highlight what could be quite a unique environment. Some of the darks on this screen are a little dark as a point of reference for the author, just as we're viewing it up here, but there is definitely detail all there, so very beautiful, very well handled.
Look, this is such a beautiful image. I was almost tempted to push it even higher. It's really humorous and quite delightful, actually. There's a lot of whimsy and there's a really beautiful story. I wonder if it was just straightened a little bit and to make it even more kind of cartoony. It could have pushed it just a little bit and that would have been an added element to kind of push it higher. But this is a stunningly well-balanced, fun image.
Yeah, wow. You know, this image could have gone a lot higher. It's a beautiful image. It's got so much character, so much story, beautiful colour palette. I love that the old man is wearing a suit in the middle of nowhere and walking into the distance. It really begs for a higher score. Unfortunately, it feels like the old man is out of focus. So some real technical thing that I really would love to see that. And the line that's going across the orange line where it's coming through the old man's head, if the photographer was a little bit higher, or just to get that line instead of cutting his head off, so his head's not in the black, or that kind of, or a bit lower, that would have been nice. But yeah.
Can I just very quickly? I think if you crop it from the top down, it will have more impact. And yeah, beautiful.
This image scores a 5. Could we get a comment from Janet, please?
Yes, I really like this picture. I love this, the blur. Probably if I did have a comment on how to improve it, I feel that there's a little bit too much space down the bottom, and I got a little bit caught up on the darker shape in the foreground, which doesn't sort of add to the narrative. Yeah, so that would be my feedback on the image.
This image scores 8, a silver plus.
This image is exquisite. There is so much texture and detail within the image. The colour palette is absolutely beautiful. The shadows are soft yet enough contrast to provide something that enhances the image to the next level. The shapes and formations and the leading lines, the cross intersections of the elements within the image all bring it to the next level for me. And I'd implore you to all have another look at this image again and have a discussion about it, please.
Okay, thanks for challenging Karen. You know, when I first looked at this, I was actually a lot higher, and then, you know, for me to go into sort of the gold range, it sort of had to be a high degree of originality or something like that. And I just felt like, for me, I didn't see, it's like obviously it's an original image, but I didn't feel like it was something I've never seen before. So that's why I didn't go to that. I could definitely go up, in, you know, because the level of creativity and, you know, it's yeah, all the things you said. I could definitely go up a little bit, yeah.
Karen, I absolutely support you. I gave this a 9 straight off the bat. This is masterful in its handling. Every tiny little footprint mark thingy on that snow is sharp. And I love the balance of colour from the bottom of the ocean to that top peak in the left hand. You can see that turquoise popping through. And I love the kind of the flatness of the grey sky. It almost looks like a hyper-realistic painting, but it's a photograph, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. The handling of light. Ben, to your point about originality, I think because it's so masterful, it almost doesn't need it. It's so stunning in its execution that there isn't anything to fault here. Yeah.
Well, I do have one fault and a lot of praise for this image. I put it in silver, and I struggled with just this bar just above the water that feels like it's a big blurry mess, and that could be a fault with my eyes, and I'd love that. The rest of it, it's a little bit low on contrast, but I'm aware that it's also a screen, and putting this in print would be beautiful. For the praise, the selection of the scape, the journey of these two pathways hitting the water, there's a lot going on that is really beautiful. But as far as pushing very high in the practice of it, I just wasn't sure about that focus at the front. And should this entire thing be captured and sharp? So it's a question that's open for somebody to help me with that.
Yeah, thank you for challenging. I was kind of thinking going to gold, but then I was reluctant because I felt like I kind of wanted one more visual element to give me a reason to back it up. But you know, there's cracks in the eyes. I mean, that's the story, right? So we got story, we got beautiful color, we got beautiful light and tonality throughout, and sharpness. Like, you know, it's really beautiful. I'm glad you challenged it. I'm up there.
We're talking environment general category here, and adding another element to this image, I think the ice is the narrative or the elements that we need here. We are focusing on the environment. There's anyone can draw any elements from this image in terms of what they're seeing. I believe there's an outstanding level of conceptual creativity here, and it's a well-seen landscape from the photographer, and I think it needs to be rewarded. So please consider coming up to gold with me.
Fantastic. We have our second goal for the day. Well done, guys. Well done, team. Okay. Next image, please. This image scores a 6A bronze award. Can I grab a quick comment from your hands? Super quick.
Awesome. Very nicely seen. Crop it in a little bit on the right. Get rid of the distractions, and then center the door. So crop it. You probably have to crop on the left a little bit, and it probably would have gone higher a point.
Really quick, this would be amazing in a series of characters, because on its own it's a bit of what you see is what you get. But imagine a series of different colours, characters of doors on a wall. This could be even greater.
Next image, please. This image is a 7 and a silver award. Would you like to challenge? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Challenge from your house.
So beautiful, isn't it? I was thinking gold with this, but then I didn't find the reasons to back up why I want to go gold, but I definitely see this in the silver plus range. It's just so beautiful. I mean, the foreground, background. So you have the layers. You got a beautiful balance with the 3 trees. I mean, the photographer found this scene. This is a capture. This is not put together in Photoshop. The mountain is like flowing in the wind, so it's got a beautiful feel, beautiful tonality, nice balance, interesting points with the tree. I think this is better than a silver, and I'd like to hear what you guys have to say. I think it's beautiful.
Can I hear from Rach? Yeah, please.
Thanks, Johannes. I wanted to love this so bad, and I'm glad it got a silver. But for me, it just felt a little bit chunky, and the foreground didn't seem focused, and it was a little bit muddy and wishy-washy and kind of chunky, and same with the trees, and then everything just felt a little bit soft in the mountain, and maybe that was the point, so maybe I've missed the point, but I am listening. But for me, I think some of those technical elements pulled me back from going higher. But it is a beautifully well-seen, well-balanced image, but yeah, it just needs some more control on the handling.
More questions? This feels like a professional photographer has seen, beautifully, like Jana said, seen an image, shot it, and then maybe added a little bit extra, which is why I gave it a bronze. It's almost in awards, but awards level, like what else should we do with this image? Should we remove the muddiness, the clunkiness? Should we either add some colour or strip the colour? Can we get some more detail in the trees? At the moment, this is a really kind of flat image that is well seen. Should we make a complete silhouette? I feel like it's not quite there to really award it as an award outside of just found and spotted and captured a little bit higher than professionally.
I wasn't sure whether we were looking at a mountain with mist or fog coming over it or cloud in the background, but once I decided I was assuming it was a mountain with cloud on it, I see a profile of a face coming out of the cloud in the background. So it looks like to me someone is pushing up through. There's a nose, there's a chin, there's kind of a representation of a chest kind of there. So I rewarded it for one being an elegant, beautiful image to just look at, and did not go to gold for the muddiness and the handling of some of or how we're seeing it presented here on screen. So I would really like this image rewarded a little bit higher, and thank you for challenging it.
Yeah, thanks everyone for their comments. I'm glad you said that, Karen, because I see the exact same thing. The technical things I can totally forgive. I did score this a silver plus for the element of like that face. I was like, wow, that's epic, and I'm assuming the photographer saw that. It's got the creativity and story there. I can forgive the muddiness and technical stuff because of that sort of elements that are adding in there. Yeah, for me, I feel like it does deserve a silver plus at least.
Yes, me too. It's so beautiful. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. I didn't see the face, but now that you said it, I can't help not to not see the face. Like, it's there, and the trees are there. Trees mean life, and the face is. I mean, yeah, you make up your own story, but I don't mind the muddiness at the front just because the feel is so beautiful. Like, it's an image you can sit back and you can actually feel something, and I really love that. And please. Go 8.
This now moves to an 8, a silver plus. Okay. Next image, please. This image scores a 6, a bronze award. Okay,
The colour palette in this is just stunning. There's well balanced between the blues and the greens, with that grey wall emphasised in between, with that crane and that man-made element fighting with that nature is really beautiful, and captured at the perfect time of day to enhance all those correct shadows. Really well captured, and lovely piece of communication.
This image scores a 6, a bronze award. Rachel, can I have a comment, please?
Beautiful image, beautifully sharp, gorgeous moment. I wonder if, to enhance this, if there was less of the lighter sky colour at the top, and I think if the photographer had changed the angle and made it kind of a consistent grey in the background, it might have strengthened this moment between these two birds.
Next image, please. This image scores a 5. Nick, can I grab a picture?
Look, I enjoyed the image and the composition and so on, but I feel the overall blacks are a bit too black, losing a lot of the detail, and you're starting to get a bit of a moire pattern on the bottom left. If the photographer had just got the figure just a smidge to the right, because the left hand is actually just sort of touching the black on the top of the building. It's just a few little things, but I think the potential there was to go a lot higher. But as it stands, I think the 5 or 6 will be about right for the image.
This image scores a 5. Janet, can I have a quick comment from you, please?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely stunning with the leaves coming up. I was looking at it thinking how you could improve it, and I don't know that you can with the cropping. It's just a good, honest, beautiful image. And
Next image, please. This scores a 7 and a silver award. Challenge.
Tonal range, texture, highlights bringing you into the image, the embryonic state that I see. Looks like there's, in the environment, it's all about birth and regrowth and humanity, and I see all of those within this image, and I implore it to come up a little bit higher and reward this photographer for capturing and handling something so beautiful.
I see all of the beautiful things that you do, Karen. The things that pulled me down, I gave this a 6, so a bronze award, is the top third, pulling it down. It just feels a little bit dark or too heavy for me, and there's some beautiful rich textures in there, so lightening that up and kind of helping to balance the tonal range would have increased it for me.
yes, I had this firmly in the silver. Absolutely beautiful how it's contained within the image. I was sort of wavering on going higher, and I'm still listening, Karen. Yes, so it is absolutely quite stunning and a little bit different to what we see in a normal, in all the aerials that we see, rather. But yes, beautifully captured image.
Look, the more I look at this, the more I'm attracted to it, and I think I'll go up to a silver distinction. At first glance, I mean, to be able to capture an aerial like that and look like an oyster or something, something completely different like that, maybe I would have scored a bit high if the top was just a little bit sharper. But I think the glow coming from it definitely pulls my eye towards the middle, and certainly I'm going to go a bit higher.
All right, I may have been lower than, actually no, I'm with you, Rach, but I'm not staying there. And Karen, my question is this blurry? Is it like a macro on a wrong angle and then straighten it and it's just blurry? Or is this a three-dimensional image where this piece is actually raised by 100 kilometres from a surface down below which can be out of focus because we're so used to aerials being sharp all the way over? I'm throwing that out there because I don't know if it's true or not, but if we can all think about it, if that's the case, then this can be sharp and that can be blurry and there's depth. If not, then it's kind of a focus screw-up. I don't know which way it is yet.
Doesn't matter. We're talking technical, but everyone's loving the image. I see water up there. I see movement of water up there. I really think this image needs to be rewarded for the beauty, the colour palette, the hues that are presented in the image and how it's been handled. Whether there's a technical issue or not, and whether it's a macro or an aerial does not matter to me, because as this image stands, as an image that I'd like to see on a wall, definitely. So I think there's a high level of visual communication. There's elements of narrative in there that can bring you up to represent birth or a womb or an oyster, whatever you may choose, but we're talking about environment here, and this is captured within a natural environment, and I think it needs to be rewarded for its outstanding level of communication.
Moved it one score, so it now scores an 8, a silver plus. Discussion, guys, well done. Next image, please. This image scores a 6, a bronze award. Can I have a comment, please?
Yeah, look, I scored it a lot higher. Oops, sorry. Yes, I scored it a lot higher, up into the silver. I just love the depth of the image and the water just actually moving together with the penguins going up from the bottom to the top. The only thing probably I would have done is to bring down a little bit of the sky. I think it's a little bit more, other that'll put a gradient up the top of the sky and bring the sky down a bit, so our focus is coming back onto the penguins, and maybe even a tad lightening up where the penguins are, just to give it just a whisker of a glow, because at the moment your lighter portions of the image is actually coming up the top, so your eyes going into the penguins and then back up to the top of the sky. So I think for the gradient in the sky, maybe a whisker cropping of the sky and then a bit of a glow, you would have scored even higher.
This image scores a 6, a bronze award. Janet, can I have a comment, please?
Yeah, absolutely amazing scene. And I guess I was just possibly a little bit disappointed in maybe the camera angle that it was shot at. You've got the amazing content of the tree inside and then this beautiful shape. Or anything to enhance the scene a little more. The right-hand side, as it's presented, is too bright, and there's a whole bunch of elements that are competing with the star of the show, which is actually the tree. Amazing opportunity, and still presented quite beautifully, but with those few elements even corrected, I think it could have been better.
This image scores a 6, a bronze award.
Yeah, I do. Look, I gave this a 7. I pushed it into silver. I think that what we want sometimes in a wintry image is clean, perfect lines and nothing else. But this is a little bit of a different story. It's spring rolling down the hills, jumping up the further hills, splashing colour onto that tree in the distance and bouncing around that little gully there. And And I think the photographer has actually deliberately left in the messy big tree there. It's a changing of a season, and there's a stoic kind of ancient being holding space there. And I think it all actually works in together. It's just a little bit different to the perfect landscape scenario, but it's no less powerful, and I think it sits in a silver category.
Thanks, Nath. This, for me, was an opportunity missed. Sometimes I think when we see such beauty, we don't know what to photograph, so we kind of photograph everything. And I feel like this either should have been about the tree or about the landscape, but having that big chunky tree on, like, so dominant actually takes away from the balance and the harmony, and actually we don't end up really getting a story about anything. So I think if the photographer choose the scene and what you're actually presenting to us, because at the moment it's sort of about everything and nothing.
Yes, I was right there on 7. I would really like to see this sort of slip up into the silver range. It's quite different having that dominant tree on the side, and it's there for a purpose, and the purpose is because of the foliage on the ground, and it's that moment afterwards, and I think it's as important as the mountains in the background. So yeah, it's beautifully placed and yeah, stunning.
Yeah. Look, I agree with all the comments so far, and I could come up a little bit. What sort of, I guess, killed it a little bit for me was the bottom left. I find it's a little bit bright. My eye just kept going down to the bottom left rather than I kept wanting to be drawn into the beautiful oranges and stuff in the centre. But then I hear what my colleagues are saying, and I could go up.
Yeah, okay. I don't want to win you over with just words. I think that we need to really decide whether this sits in a silver award or whether it's almost there. I think that tree is absolutely vital here. It's the only green thing. Everything else is on its way. I think there's something, at least in the narrative, that shows a real strength and permanence about that character, and it needs to be there. And it's the start of the slide. It's the start of the slide of spring, so I feel like it's there. Yes, it's on a screen. Yes, it may print better, and it may get that chance if we get it to silver. But we are judging what we see, so yeah, just have it double check. I really am confident on my 7, so we'll see. Thank you.
This is a beautiful scene. I think something to enhance this might have even been to crop it even higher at the sky, make it super skinny, super panoramic. You've got a little bit of vignetting around the edges that pull it down a wee bit, but yeah, I think enhancing those very blacks would have worked.
Georgia. Shot taken in May 2023 as part of a motorbike and photography trip through Georgia. This image scores a 5. Can I have a quick comment, Mark, please? Comment, please.
I actually scored this an image of 7. I really enjoyed it. I like the decay of it all, the symmetry. It's well balanced, and I just really enjoy what looks like what it would have been. You can take yourself back in a nice time, but I think the photographer's done a really good job of framing it properly as well. So.
This image scores a 6, a bronze award. like to challenge?
Do you have time? Or?
Yes, which time? Always, always for review.
Look, I scored it a silver. I was really enjoying the beautiful sort of the glow of the planks as it goes up, and the the contrast between the really sharp jetty and, of course, the out of focus long exposure water, and that glow as you come to the end of the jetty. I think we've seen a lot of these sort of images, but to me this is done really well. Now, I'm not really asking, for a gold or anything here, but I think from a 6 to come up to a silver, I think is worth it for this particular image.
Yeah, sure. I really struggled with this image. I can imagine a professional photographer standing on here and doing a pretty good job, but the fringing, not the fringing, but the darkening of the tops of every single one of these seems to tell me that somebody really pulled down the exposure so hard that it hit the tops and killed it a little bit. The detail on the jetty is so beautiful up in the foreground, but it's vignetted out, so our eye lands in the brightest spot, which lands on nothing in the background. And if that nothing is our central focus, I'd love to get a bit more space above it so that we can land there. So I was left struggling to find the focal point of this. All the feet elements are there, but not quite in the right place for me.
Yes, exactly what Nathan said, in that I'm just really enjoying the foreground and as it goes through, but it looks like there's been a little bit of a heavy hand on the post-production work, and what I'm presented with here and what I've got to judge sort of sits with me just out of the silver category.
Yeah, just a comment about leading lines. They're all going vertical, but our orientation is horizontal, so we're left going nowhere. And I think even making this a square and giving more space up top would have enhanced this image.
I actually really enjoyed this image. I love the detail that's on that jetty. I love that there's a symmetry without it being symmetrical, with the right-hand side having that extra post. For me, the way that jetty leads you into nothingness, I actually really enjoyed that fact that there was nothing there. It's almost like a finite as infinite, and it feels like that jetty is just floating in the air. So I really did enjoy that image. So I'd happily see that go to a silver for sure.
Okay. Well, nothing much to add. I think I may be struggling, but to me, it's just. I just very naturally just rest at the end of that jetty where that glow is, and I think it is going somewhere for me, but I think I may be struggling a bit. Yep.
So Nick will hold his score. Guys, could just rescore for me, please. So unfortunately, it hasn't moved. This is still a 6 of bronze. Nice strong bronze. Yeah, good chat. Lunch. Rach, do you want to go grab lunch? Shireen, can you jump in? And then this image scores a 5. Shireen, would like to challenge?
Good, I'd like to challenge the rest of you. Or whatever you call it. Am I saying it loud enough? Okay. Look, it really brings you back to the Impressionist period. I think that the artist has been seeing things really cleverly. The colours are amazing. Balance is really good. I think probably the only thing that kept me from going up even that little bit more is on that top right-hand corner. We could have darkened that down a bit, gotten a bit more balance going on there. Really, really beautifully seen. You travel around and you can keep on moving, which is terrific. And to me, you're landing in the right spots. You're landing down the bottom on the grass. You're landing up around where all of this beautiful autumn red is and the green is. And it's got so much texture and character to it. I can't see that it wouldn't go even higher, to be honest.
Yeah, I was way down incompetent. I felt like the Impressionist period picked a piece and focused on it. They might pick this little piece and bring it out, or pick a piece in here, or take the whole thing and finish the image. And at the moment I'm seeing what it looks like an incomplete crop. I am falling out of the edges and I'm failing to land on anything, but I do appreciate what you see, Shreen, in the party that is nature and the beautiful colours, and I think they got that right. But I'm listening, but I've got nothing more than a tree in bloom at the moment.
Yes, I was in the competent range as well, and yeah, I'm listening though. Just the sharpness of all the leaves that are coming through, and you know, if the photographer was adding something to the actual depth of field or the focus, or yeah, I'm just sort of trying to fight my way into the image to find something that's going to bring me up into that silver range.
Not really. I agree with what Nathan is saying. It's competent, but I'm finding my eye just keeps going up to the top right because of the bright bit there. If there's a vignette around it, maybe that would have helped.
With this image, I was just struggling to rest my eye on any particular part of the image. I felt it was very, very busy. I can understand now, like the painterly feel maybe, or the impressionist, inspiration behind it maybe. But I'm just looking for something to rest my eyes on, something of importance, because otherwise it just, for me, looks like it's just a tree and nothing more. So.
And I agree with you. For those of you saying you have got nowhere to rest your eyes, that you are travelling around the image, that's exactly the intent that the photographer has decided to capture. It is a nod to the Impressionist artwork and the way that the light plays against each individual leaf. I think that even though a couple of you are saying that you fall out of the frame, you're still coming back in there again. So it does allow you to travel around and around and be enveloped in these beautiful colours and tonal ranges. So I think that this is actually something that's really quite stunning. Okay, yes. This is a really nice image of a great capture of a square. I think that I probably would have marked up a little bit more if we had paid a little bit more attention to the cropping. Maybe a little bit less sky or more sky and less concrete. Looking at working the abstract a little bit more. And it will be interesting to see this one in print, to be honest. So there you go, thank you.
I really love this image. The depth of the sharks, seeing shadows, the ones really low, the ones above, the whale, the way the sharks are circling it, it just shows the circle of life with this dead whale. I just thought it was really fantastic, so great work.
I got a little longer. I think you know, we all start shooting duck images. It's very hard to put a duck image into an award. So think about what can you do with a duck that really elevates it to something that we haven't seen, because we all photograph ducks like everybody draw a circle. What I really appreciate about this is the symmetry of the two sort of the wakes and then the tree, sort of and the feel of it and the sharpness. So yeah, I think it's well seen. Just think about what can you do outside the square to really pump.
Unanimously, this is a silver award, a 7 silver award. Could I get a comment from Nick? It's nice to
Look, I think it's worth a silver. The only thing I struggle a little bit is I'm seeing a sort of a time exposure in the water, and then 3 sharp ducks at the top right, and I'm trying to think that there's some anomaly of time there somewhere.
It could be fog. Looks like it's fog.
Could be fog, yep, could be fog.
Next image, please. And unanimously, this was a 7 and a silver award.
Yeah, I think this is a well captured image. Obviously, in the environment, level of difficulty is up there. Beautifully seen. Possibly too many shadows for seeing that depth in those mountains to get the height.
Next image, please. This one also has a caption. Creek looping across mud flats, Kununurra, Western Australia. And another 7, a silver award. Hannah, can I ask a comment, please?
100 points for composition. Composition is outstanding on this image. The balance, where you position your drone or your airplane, it's really something. Yeah, it's just beautiful. Nothing to fault.
Next image, please. This image scores a 5. Shireen, can I have a quick comment, please?
Thank you to the photographer. It's a really lovely construct. I think that it works nicely in the balance section, like the front of it is really lovely, really well balanced. Maybe a little bit of re-looking at the cloning. There I see that there's a little bit of some work that's just fallen down a little bit on the left-hand side there. Well, that's what I see anyway. But yeah, a really nice way of looking at the blue boat shed.
This image scores an 8, a silver plus. Challenge.
I gave this a 10. I know that when my heart starts pounding that it's a good image, and this has immediate visual, emotional, communicational impact. Just every single element you could talk about is masterful. Compositionally, the story, the colours, the shape, the balance. It could be about this tiny little element of life pushing through the earth, but what a colour palette, we've never really seen aerials like this. To me, this is pushing that genre to the next level. We've seen a lot of aerial images, but this feels to me like an evolution of the genre, and it's really, really exciting. It could be threads. I can see so much in this. This is a fine art, beautiful piece of communication beyond anything that we've seen before. So yeah.
And I agree, I was a wuss.
Thanks, Shireen.
Everything you're saying, I'm going, yep, you're right, you're right. So, yeah, sorry about that, folks. Sometimes you make a boo-boo.
Okay, so I actually scored this a 6, but I'm keen to hear and listen. The contrast between the bottom and the top, the two areas, is very striking. I do like that element. The whole like the vein of the river system. I feel we've just seen that so much that that part's nothing new for me. So I do enjoy the image. I do think it's a very good image. I just don't think there's anything that unique about it. But I am pleased. Tell me more, and I will be considering. I'll definitely be coming up.
Part is just so exquisite, and the darkness, which really works against contrasted to the brighter part at the top, but the brighter is almost half the image, whereas there's no narrative information for me, and visually it's also it makes the bottom part look so good, but at the same time it's still half the image. So I was a little stuck on that, but I'm glad you mentioned the color palette, because the color palette really is really something, right? So I'm glad I have a reason to go up.
I see a patchwork quilt, I see lungs, I see warmth, I see depth. I'll be coming up, but the juxtaposition just jaunted me for a second, but the longer I sit with it, I see it more.
Yeah, thanks everyone. I love that you said that, Karen. I feel like, to your point, Mark, we have seen these patterns, these tree-like patterns before, but never kind of like this. It's always about just the tree patterns, but this has pushed it into a narrative to me. It could be like a cell, and I think that's why the top half is so contrasted to the bottom. There's not much going on, but it could be like a layer of skin. And then when you start kind of adding all of these meanings and definitions, it becomes an image that you can sit with for a really long time. Karen's seen patchwork things. We love the colour palette. We see the kind of that tree, the lungs, whatever. This is almost, it could be about dark and light, and all sorts of different elements can be brought in. You could bring in Greek mythology if you want to, with fighting and good and evil, and balance, I feel like, is a really good word here as well. It's just something unique, something powerful, something exquisitely beautiful, and it's photographic, which I think to me is just, this is such a beautiful image. So I'm sticking with my 10. I'm glad I went 10.
Fantastic. So, Rachel Wilcock High School of 10. Could the other 4 judges please rescore? It's time to type it all in. We are now at 9, a gold award. Well done, Rachel. Great discussion, guys. Well done. Congratulations to the author.
Thank you for enlightening me.
This image scores a 7, a silver award.
Beautifully captured, beautifully seen, gorgeous colour palette. Love the little Easter egg of a penguin. Oh my gosh, there's a penguin in there. It's so beautiful. I love that you can, the scale of the image is its strength.
Can I give some constructive, as in critical feedback? So the top right, so the waterfall on the top right is a little dark in comparison to the rest. So if you just contrast this a little bit, like brighten this up, and you might get more balance through the tonal range. Beautiful.
Next image, please. This one has a caption. So, mud flats mouth of King River, Western Australia. This scores an 8 and it is a silver. Nate, could I just a quick comment from you, please?
Absolutely. What a visceral play of monochromatic light. That was a whole lot of words. This one just works. It works as a fine art piece. It works as veins and electricity and movement and stillness. And I think the photographer has done everything they need on this, and it would look wonderful in print. I can't wait to see it there.
Thank you very much. Next image, please. This image scores 5. Shireen, can I grab a quick comment from you, please?
Yeah, I scored this a 6. I think that it's beautifully captured. Exceptional work, as in professional work, good quality. Love the palette and the colour, and the balance is great. So I can see why the photographer took this image.
A little constructive critique. Although the shadow in the foreground holds visual weight at the bottom of the image, I think it's a little too much and it could be cropped a bit.
Next image, please. This image scores 5. Can I get a comment from you? Oh, you want to challenge it? You sure can?
Yes, I think, you know, I thought about silver and I thought it's definitely a bronze. You know, it's beautiful captured. Yes, those images are somewhat easy to do, but then they're not really. You know, well, when you look at the composition up here, it's all like beautiful. The light is beautiful. It looks a little dark when it came around, and I thought maybe some people actually sort of struggle with their monitor might look different at home. But it actually, when you start looking into it, you actually see, like you find detail in the darkness. You find, you know, if you sort of invites you in and that there's more to it than you might see from initially far away where you think it's too dark. So there's some really nice balance. Like most of the white throughout. If the bottom would have been cropped, I probably would have gone higher. Well, I definitely would have gone higher. That sort of helped me back. But I think it's just better than professional quality. It's really well seen. It's got some mood.
I don't think I have much to add. No.
I'm enjoying the image and believe it should be around there, but I am seeing a large black spot in the middle of the image, which looks like a hole in the print to me. I can't detain any detail in that middle section of the print, so therefore it's held me back from going any higher.
Yeah, sure. I'm sitting on professional practice because, because it is. Clearly a professional can set up a tripod and capture a beautiful exposure, like got the lighting right. To elevate it to awards, it might need to be flipped horizontally, cropped like Johanna said, lifted the shadows, maybe made black and white, because those colours are actually just getting in the way for me. There's a patch of green, there's a patch of yellow, there's another patch of green, and this journey is this beautiful waterfall coming down, and I think the photographer has already got the content, but they've just got to spend a bit more time to really get it up and towards level. So I see it as a strong professional practice.
Yeah, I mean, if you would have done all the things that you said, I'm pretty sure I would have scored in the silver then. So I'm asking 1 point. I mean, you know, you do what you want, of course. But I think, you know, a bronze would make me feel a lot better about this image than professional practice. Do it to make me feel
This image scores 7, a silver award.
Congratulations. If you are working on this, there's an element in there you'll need to work out. I can see an edge of an overlay or a crop or something to the right of the lighthouse. There's a big line. So just watch your post-production because that will cost you points if you do print this.
Next image, please. This image scores an 8, a silver plus. Congratulations to the author. Rach, can I have a quick comment from you, please?
This is a bit magical, actually. I think to enhance it even further, maybe just watch the bright, bright lights. But this is a stunning piece of art. Yeah, very well handled. Beautiful.
Next image, please. This image scores an 8, a silver plus. Karen, can I have a quick comment from you?
This is an amazing capture of wildlife and nature, very well fitting for the category. There's beautiful details in the shadow, very fast shutter speed to get those beautiful flecks of snow. I can't give it much critique.
Great. Next image, please. It is. This image scores a 7, a silver award.
Yeah, stunning, well seen, stunning expressions on the monkey, especially as in a baby monkey. I think constructively you could, that orange spot on the right, top right, that's a little bit too strong, so a little bit less saturation I think would help. And then just brighten up the top monkey's face a little bit. I think that's how it could be improved a little.
Next image, please. Next image does have a caption. A lonely tree left on a hill paddock in Springvale, Otago, New Zealand. This image scores a 6, a bronze award.
Great image with this shot was getting to the right location and framing it right, and then it's a pretty good edit, but to bring it up to awards I needed a few more elements, and you can introduce elements to something like this so the photographer thinks into what they see as a power in this image and then accentuate that, add some birds or add a sheep or add a journey or add some lighting, add the contrast, just something else. As it stands, it's just a great kind of professional practice with the benefits.
Next image, please. This image scores a 4. Rach, can I just grab a quick comment from you, please?
This image is beautiful in colour palette, a use of a technique that's well used by photographers and a scene that we commonly see in awards or previously have seen in awards. So thinking about subject matter and great use of technique, and it came in the competent range. So it was a well executed image, just not of award standard.
This image scores 7 and a silver award. That was the last image for the environment general. We are going to go straight back into the environment aerial. So this will be the aerial category with the environment. Oh, sorry, yes, can we have a quick comment? My apologies, sorry.
Yeah, I think this sits perfectly at a 7. Lovely silver award. I really liked the geometry of the whole thing, the attention to detail. I'm just making sure everything is straight and level for that type of image. ticked all the boxes for me. I love the colour of the building itself, and just having each window have something different in it, you know, just gets you questioning what's actually going on behind there. So yeah, great image.